Hey there, TigerShark here again with Okano. So there's a video game critic I watch who goes by the name of Yahtzee Croshaw. He worked for The Escapist for a long time doing a popular series you might have heard of called Zero Punctuation. Now he works for Second Wind, and he basically does the exact same series, but now it's called Fully Ramblematic. Anyway, he did a review for the game Old Skies, and in the beginning he did a joke about the word avowed. He looked on Steam for a game called Disavowed. He promptly said, and I quote, "Well, I ain't reviewing that, looks like crap." So naturally, I immediately downloaded it. It looks pretty much right up my alley, so here we go. And boy do I have things to say about this one. As usual, let's get to the positives before the negatives. So right off the bat, I really like the character design and the art. You play as a toy or a robot or something that was rejected by the Tinkerer for being defective. Your mission is to get revenge. The game is a Metroidvania with all the classic upgrades you get along the way: double jump, dash, wall jump. The main selling point for the game is a remote-controlled ranged stun shot that nearly freezes time while you use it. The areas are all visually distinct with different types of enemies. The combat is decent. The stun shot is interesting, but it never seemed to stun the normal enemies. Not sure if I was using it wrong. And ultimately, the cooldown is so long that when fighting normal enemies, it's not really worth using anyway, except for the ones that are specifically designed for it. It's useful in some boss fights, though. Speaking of the boss fights, I fought 4 bosses. Each one had its own thing, and they were actually pretty fair and fun to fight. The platforming was actually pretty hard. There were a couple parts that made me want to rage quit, but I think that was a mix of me not being skilled and the small amount of jank. Most of the time it was pretty fair. It was mostly tight spots and timing that threw me off. Plus my muscle memory from playing Hollow Knight actually made it harder because of the keybinds. But here I do have to start getting into the negatives. Since I'm on the topic, the platforming was not quite as good as I wanted. Don't get me wrong, most of it was actually really good, but the controls just weren't tight enough for me to feel comfortable in some of the harder sections. Plus the placement of hazards mixed with that just made it feel slightly off. And since I mentioned the keybinds, this game desperately needs a tutorial. I don't know if I missed something, but the game just started and I had to figure out how it worked. I pressed every button on my keyboard and I couldn't find an attack button. I ended up clicking my mouse randomly and discovered that was it. Also, there is a part that you literally can't pass unless you pogo off a spike. But again, there was no explanation of how to do that. I figured out it was the control key. But that's the sort of thing you absolutely have to teach the player how to do. I knew to look for it, since I've played Hollow Knight and games like it, but if I had gone into this with minimal gaming experience, I would never have known that's even a thing that can be done. Players could end up frustrated and stuck 5 minutes into your game. I ended up switching to my controller as well, which made the game a good amount easier. Personal opinion, anyway. I also found some of the music to be a little annoying. Not all of it, but some of it was loud and obnoxious. I know I can turn it down, but I left it up just so I don't have to add music track to this video. And the last thing, I didn't end up finishing the game. I got to a point where I was nearly soft-locked. I dropped into a dark area surrounded by spikes with spotlights around. It looked like an important room, like something was supposed to trigger here, but nothing happened. The only way out of the room was to die by falling or hitting spikes, then respawn back outside. And even after respawning, the only reason I wasn't soft-locked here was because I managed some really tricky platforming to get back where I came from. I'll show this on screen if I can find it in the footage. At this point I was just tired of the platforming. It was a significant jump in difficulty for this area I was in. I didn't feel like exploring and dying over and over again, not knowing which direction I was supposed to go. I was willing to give it one more shot, so I restarted the game hoping that it would reset something and let me progress. But wouldn't you know it, the save didn't work. I couldn't get back in. So that's that, over an hour of playtime wasted. Anyway, I think there were a lot of good things about this one, and the dev did a pretty good job. I really wanted to give it a positive review after Yahtzee said it looked like crap. But as it is, I can't tell you to go and try it if I think you might get soft-locked or your save file might not work. Of course, I'll still leave the link if you want to try it. There's a solid chance I just missed something or my game glitched and yours won't, maybe. Some people do have all the achievements, so it's definitely beatable. But anyway, that's all for this one, and as always, I hope you have a spectacular day. I have other channels and projects that I would love for you to check out. I have a second channel called Drawing with TigerShark where I have a variety of drawing content. I have an EP on Spotify called 5,555 Miles as my one-man band called Power Mouse. And finally, I have a clothing brand called Studio Duck Apparel featuring original artwork that I create myself. The links to these things will all be in the description.